Learning to sew at 30, and today we are doing some seams. In the last video, I went through a pair of pants that I made, and you all gave me some amazing pointers. As soon as I started talking, she jumped up on the table. The first seam we are going to start with is the French seam. This one seemed to be the most popular suggestion, and I think it'll work. I'm hoping I cut the legs wide enough to accommodate the extra space, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's jump in. We're gonna do a single layer variation. I love you, but I have to work. Iron is plugged in. Cat is safely on the floor. So let's start with just single layer pant, French seam. There's two ways I've kind of seen people do the French seam. One way is they just go through once, invert it, go through again, and then they're done. The other is they'll like go through, then cut it really close, like cut it down to like 1/8 of an inch. I think I'm just gonna run it along the side of my presser foot and hope that that is enough. We do a straight stitch. We'll do the center position, and that should honestly be enough for us. Remove our first clip. Second clip. Reverse. All right, so I actually made this super close, probably way more closer than it needs to be. All right, I need you to scoot back a hair. Thank you. And there we have it. Then once you invert it to the side that's gonna be out, the right side, I'm gonna show the big camera too. So here it is. Then if this were like the pant leg, it'd be both sides, and then you'd flip it inside out, and then this would be your seam. Oh wait, that's actually really nice. Okay, French seam. I can kind of see Tilly through this. I can actually see Tilly like perfectly. I can actually see her through it at that close too. All right, so this would be underwear exposing. Underwear would be seen through this fabric, and I feel like every time I go to the Ren Fair, it rains. So one layer for pant. I can't say that's gonna be it. It does look really nice. The problem is kind of bulky, right? The other thing about the French seam that I think I would do differently, and maybe this is just another seam in general, to avoid just having this flopping around, I might like iron it flat and then do a top stitch through it to just kind of hold it to the leg more. Let me know if there's a name for that stitch. That saved us some time. We definitely cannot do a single layer. I ain't confident like that. Next, we're going to do a double layer. So for the double layer, we see we have two pieces here. So that would be one panel of the leg would each have two sections of this material. And then those would be sewn together and then flipped like that. And that I cannot see through. I can like see light through it. I can see my spotlight over there, but I can't see images. So double layer is a bare minimum, and we might go with having this kind of weighted canvas in between. So my question for you, way more experienced individuals, is if I do the double layer per leg, right, like this, do I do an outline of each panel first, like with a stitch, like I don't know if I'm using this term right, a stay stitch, just like a straight stitch around the entire panel of each before trying to put them together? Or do I just leave it like this and then work it out as I go? Maybe I'll clean these up to be like identical so I can actually see if this fabric is shifting on me. All right, well, we're just gonna work with this side that's not soaking wet. So we're gonna do the exact same thing, straight stitch down, invert, straight stitch, and closing the seam, and then see how it looks, see how it feels. All right, that gives me faith that this material is not gonna move too much, but we can see some of the layers started to shift from the presser foot. I'm not sure if it means too much or too little pressure, so I'm gonna have to do some research into that. What's nice is this material does not want to fray nearly as easily as any of the other stuff I've used in my previous projects. So one of the other stitches actually might be better, but we'll find out. And Tilly is back on guard duty. All right, so this is our, what is that called? Like a swatch? Okay, so we open it, flip it over. Once again, that just looks great from the outside. It looks super neat from the inside. I am a little concerned about this. I think, like, look how thick that is. If I went with this, I would probably stitch that down. I don't know, would that destroy it? But all right, so that's the French seam. We have one more French seam to do, the one that has the lining material. Looking at the French seam on the double layer, I'm thinking that this is gonna be way too much for a French seam because this is gonna be a double layer with a third layer of really heavy duty stuff. So here, let's see if I can get a good shot of it. 6 layers, so basically 3 layers per panel of the pant. And we're trying to do a French seam. I can already tell this is too much. Ooh. Oh, okay, how do you stop this from happening? So as I started going forward, it pulled the corner of this into the tray. I can like fix it. Let me know if there's a way to prevent that. I'll see if it lets me keep sewing here. All right, so we definitely saw some shifting of the fabric. I need to watch a video on how to set your presser foot pressure level. I definitely might have caused this little runaway here. I am so glad I am doing this on these pieces of fabric before making those pants because, oh my gosh, it would have been bad. It would have been so bad. I'm already looking at all this and I'm like, oh yeah, oh gosh, did I just rip out that entire stitch? No, we're good, we're good. All right, so this is 6 layers of this stuff, right? If a zigzag works for this, I would zigzag, and that would be in an okay level of seam thickness. It would hold it together well. I'm looking at it now and I'm like, this is gonna be a monster seam. It's not even gonna fit under my presser foot well. I can already tell this is gonna be bad. Oh my gosh, okay. That is the French seam. Okay, granted I could have probably cut it, maybe ironed it, and maybe I could get this size down a bit, but I'm sorry, that's insane. That's like, it doesn't want to move. That is our French seam. So we have learned a couple things. One, single layer, not gonna work no matter what the seam is because we can see through it. People will see my underwear. 2 layers is a minimum. How this triple layer feels by itself, sure it's thick, but it's not like crazy thick. It's like durable thick. I will say we're going into summer. That might be a little too much. There is one other flaw I wanted to show with this material. So if I use this material, I have to be super mindful of its orientation because if I sew it along this way, even the lightest amount of pulling starts to pull it apart. And if, let's say I'm running, I'm jumping, or I fall, instantly we get to see this start to just tear apart. But the other way was super strong. That's good to know. All right, so we know we need a minimum of 2 layers of this stuff, and potentially we might be using a layer of this stuff. So that brings us to seam number 2, the flat felled seam, which I love in concept, hate in execution. All right, so we're gonna start with our double layer. All right, for the sake of convenience, I'm going to do a pretty big seam allowance here. We're doing a flat felled seam. And the reason I don't like the flat felled seam is it seems like I have to do a lot of ironing, which I have to do anyway. I'm just gonna have to accept the pain and say, hey, this is sewing, right? It's ironing. Ironing is sewing. That's what I'm picking up on. So we did see some shifting of that top layer again. So that is absolutely a concern going into these pants, because if I'm doing a long run and my layers all start to shift on that leg, that is gonna be a problem. Hopefully ironing and pinning is gonna be what solves that. All right, so the flat felled seam, from what I understand, first, you open up your seam, you're gonna split this guy open, we're gonna iron, everything is open. Next, we cut one side in half. And I'm gonna have to show off my terrible scissor skills. This looks like half to me. And then you flip this over. Like with this much seam allowance, this seems like really difficult. It's like saying no thank you. That's not holding, that is, oh my gosh. Yeah, that's crazy. All right, and then once it's folded over, you flip it over into itself once more. Like this, and then once more. Wow, that's a hard seam. I have feelings about that seam. I don't know why that one was so hard for me to understand what was happening. So we sewed along there. Now we're flipping it over and top stitching it down. Wait, that's actually kind of sick. Let me clean this up. Wow, that's actually super clean. All right, take a look at this. Flat felled seam, y'all. That is super clean. What? A lot more work, but super sturdy still. Wow. Yeah, that's, dang. Woo! It's really hard on this fabric though, but I did cut my other piece in half and not maybe as short as it should have been. I don't know, that's super clean. If I could get this, if I practiced this a bit before hitting those pants, I mean, I'd love that seam. I'd be proud of that seam. That's sick, okay. Like look at this size difference. This basically lays near the same thickness versus our French seam. This would be that. I'm definitely not doing myself favors, I think, using such small pieces of fabric for this, but I only have this much of the blue stuff left and I don't want to cut more off my bolt. Flat felled with 6 layers. Not gonna lie to you, genuinely sounds like hell, but you know what? This is learning time, gotta try it. So for this one, just to try making my life as easy as possible, I'm going 6, going center. Once again, I'm thinking that if I like go around the edge of all my panels first with like, I don't know, just like a straight stitch, it'll probably help in the long run from things deforming. It would also help with this, right? Because these would already be separate by that stitch. I'm seeing so many ways to do a flat felled. These people look way faster. What? This person just threw it over top of the other one. And then like just flipped it. What? We're gonna cut it close. That was probably too close. Oh no. All right, it's fine, right? All right, that did not work. Okay, post it. Yeah, I made that way too short. I made that way too short. Yeah, I don't know what I did wrong. I definitely skipped a step. I'm not sure if I just did a flat felled seam. Did I do it? I somehow did something differently and somehow still got the same result. This one looks better. I have no clue what I did. All right, that's the flat felled. The final seam that I'll be doing is the edge stitch seam. I chose this as the third because it looked similar to what I was doing, but cleaner and easier. So we're gonna go for it. Now we do a zigzag over the edge. I don't know how people lock in zigzag stitches. Do you just go forward with the zigzag, the same as always, and then back? It's not looking great. All right, so I definitely did not go over the edge. That's gonna take some getting used to, but it's a straight stitch with a zigzag. And so the last step of this that I saw, you get as close to this guy as possible. Like that. And it looks pretty good from the outside. I feel like since it lines up with a line, it'll make it very obvious if you drift. And all it does is it just basically goes over the previous thing, holds it down a little bit. But yeah, that's the edge stitch seam. What's nice is with this fabric, I really feel like this is gonna hold up pretty well. So yeah, this is the edge stitch seam. This is probably the simplest of them all. Now, I do worry about frayed, and the whole point of learning seams was to kind of try to conquer the fraying. But this is a stitch that's very possible that I'll use just because it is so easy and so much quicker when you have so many seams. As a beginner, I'm just really worried about doing really long stretches of flat felled. And the French seam just seems so fat. On the single layer, it was totally fine. But as soon as we got up to double, we started getting a little wonky. That's a bit much. I'm very glad we did this test because I know I'm not gonna use this drop cloth material for this project. I'll probably use it for the belt, for the waistband. Absolutely we'll use it for that. But for the entire pant, that's gonna be way too much. It's gonna be way too hot. The seams are gonna be insanely thick. But I'm still stuck on what seam I want to use if I use these three. I'm a big fan of the look of this. Now, obviously, this one was the simplest of the seams, the quickest one to do, but I don't like the look. It's just, there's something weird to me about running a line right on the outside of the pant, right next to another line. It just looks like, it looks accidental to me, at least how I did it. Maybe if I was better, it wouldn't look so bad. It's just because I'm bad at it. But this one, even though these are shaky and wavy, there's just something about it that looks nice. It's like, yes, this looks very handmade and by a newbie. Now, the one that looks the best from the outside is definitely the French seam. The problem is just how thick the seam is on the inside. I would want to think about stitching it down, maybe top stitching from the outside right along the edge of it. But then I think it kind of pulls away from the reason we're using this one to begin with, which is just, it's easy, it's fast, and it looks really clean on the inside and the outside. So right now, I think I'm between the flat felled and the French seam. Let me know if I should stay away from any of these. If you have a seam that's better, I'm gonna be taking a week or two to really practice, get a feel for the machine more before I tackle this job, because I'm realizing this stuff is kind of hard to work with, and I don't want to mess up these pants. I'm really excited for these pants, but I am also on a timeline. I think I'm going to a Ren Fair in like a week and a half, 2 weeks. So maybe I don't have as much time as I was just thinking. Oh, geez. I might be working on these next week. So please leave comments now of any tips you have, any tricks. If you saw anything I did, you're like, whoa, don't do that. Please let me know. Gosh, I only have like 2 weeks. Okay, so in 2 weeks or so, you'll see a video of the pants being made. And hopefully I've improved by then. Yeah, I'm gonna be cutting it close. Well, good day, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is. Thanks for watching. Bye.